Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we're going to be going over and showing you how to install the Roadmaster Diode Wiring Kit here on a 2016 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. So a diode wiring kit is going to fall under the category of a tow bar wiring, which is just one of the many things you need in order to successfully flat tow your Jeep. Now there's quite a few different options in regards to that tow bar wiring. The diodes, however, are best in my opinion. So the reason I like the diode wiring kit is that it actually uses our factory tail lights here. Therefore, we don't have to worry about draping any lights over the vehicle like some of the magnetic kind, and we don't have to worry about actually drilling into or modifying our tail light housing like some of the bulb and socket kits. The diode kit, as we said, is going to use the factory tail lamps here, and we're actually running our own wires from the rear to the front of the vehicle. Now, with the integrated diodes, these are going to do a great job of help protecting your Jeep here. That way you don't have to worry about any issues with the motorhome wiring or lights affecting our vehicle lights here. So it does this by stopping the backflow of electricity. It's only going to let electricity flow through the diode one way. Therefore, you don't have to worry about issues with the motorhome, again, affecting your Jeep here. So this kit here is going to pretty much give us all the basic signals that we need to remain legal. So it's going to transfer the running light circuit from the motorhome to the vehicle, as well as the stop and turn signal circuits for either side. Now there isn't a reverse circuit, but you're really not going to be reversing too much here when you're attached to your motorhome. So this is a complete kit. It's going to come with everything you need down to the wires, the diodes, and your electrical connectors, such as those miscellaneous butt connectors, ring terminals, and even a self-tapping screw for the ground. So this is a complete kit. It's going to have everything you need, which is one of the reasons I really like it. The only thing you will need in regards to tools is going to be just a handheld set of wire crimpers and cutters. We do have a cost-effective option here at eTrailer if you'd like to pick this up along with your kit. So our kit is also going to come with an umbilical cord, which is pretty much the electrical connector that bridges the motorhome and the vehicle here. Now we have a couple different options for that. We have a straight cable and then we have a hybrid cable. So these particular options are going to be designed for tow bars that have those integrated channels for you to run your cables through. And basically what that does is you make sure your cord doesn't get tangled up in everything, and it also keeps it off the ground here so you're not dragging it and damaging it. These are very durable cables, but you obviously wouldn't want to drag it going down the road. Now the main difference between these two here is that this one has a coiled end, it's a hybrid. So this is still going to go through the tow bar channels here on this end, but then we have a coiled end here which connects to the motorhome. So you can see the straight cable, there's not a ton of slack, but with some setups there is a little bit more slack here than you'd want normally, and in which case you would go with the hybrid cable. I like the hybrid cable a lot. They're both great options here though for tow bars with the integrated channels. So in regards to the actual connectors that this kit comes with, it's going to come with a 7 to 6 way. So the 7-way part is going to be on the motorhome. Pretty much all motorhomes are wired with a 7-way, at least a lot of the newer ones. So it's going to plug right into that. And then we're going to be wiring in a 6-way on the vehicle. Now the reason we have a 6-way is there's actually an extra terminal there if we want to run a battery charge line, which basically just charges our Jeep's battery from our motorhome while we're towing. It doesn't actually come with that. It is a separate part, but having that extra terminal open allows you to run it through the umbilical cord so you don't have to run a separate wire. So it's just a nice added convenience should we choose to add a charge line to our system. So in regards to installation, nothing here is particularly challenging. It's definitely something a do-it-yourselfer can do. It's pretty much just going to take you some time. We mentioned that one tool you will need, but aside from that, you're pretty much going to have everything with your kit here. The bulk of the installation is just going to be running a wire from the front to the rear, but aside from that, everything's straightforward. We'll go jump into that now. So the first step of our installation, we need to find a spot on the front of the vehicle here to mount our trailer connector. Now I've sort of mapped out what location is going to be best. I'm going to be mounting it up in this corner here, just directly beside our license plate. We need to go up as far as possible because there's a cross beam behind there that could interfere with our trailer connector if we don't go up high enough. So I just kind of marked it out here in this little divot. But now I'm actually going to remove this panel from the vehicle there. That way we can mark our hole and then secure our trailer connector while it's off the vehicle. So now we're going to take our skid shield here, and if you remember that mark we made earlier, we're going to take a step drill bit. We're going to drill this out to around 7/8 to an inch diameter. We just need to allow enough thickness for our wires to pass through, and then obviously the outer body of our connector. So we'll take out about 7/8 of an inch. I'll test fit our connector there, and then we'll trim more as needed. So you can see we have our hole made now. We'll just go ahead and take our connector here and sort of test fit it. And it fits pretty good right in there. We do have enough clearance for our lid there. So that's good. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take a paint marker here and I'm going to mark either side of these holes here. Try to get it in the center as best we can, just like that. And then I'm going to remove this. I'm going to come back with a 3/16" drill bit and I'm going to drill out those 2 holes there. That way we can fasten our trailer connector here to this panel using the provided hardware. So now that we have both of our holes drilled, we'll just take our trailer connector there, drop it into place, and then secure it with our provided hardware. So now that we have the connector secure, we're going to take our wiring harness here. I'm going to peel back each of these strands here a few inches or so. And then I'm going to strip some of the jacket off each of these to reveal the copper wire underneath. You only need to strip off about 1/4 inch or so. We don't need a whole lot. We don't actually want a whole lot either because that could actually lead to issues with the circuits jumping and shorting out. So just 1/4 inch is really all we want. And then we're going to twist these strands nice and tight there so the wires don't try to fray when we insert them into the terminals. That should be perfect. Now we're going to need a small Phillips head screwdriver because we're going to be attaching these into each one of the terminals there on the back of our connector. Before we do that though, I want to go ahead and slip on this boot before I forget. Just like so. And then each of these are going to be labeled. They're going to correspond to one of these wires. So this one here, it says GD. It is kind of hard to read. But we're just going to loosen the screw. Don't remove it all the way because when they fall out, they're pretty hard to find. So that one is labeled GD, so I know that's going to be for my ground. So I'm just going to take the wire there, stick it into the terminal, and then tighten down that screw. We're going to repeat the same process for our other 3 wires. The turn signal is labeled TM, left turn, which is for the yellow wire, is LT, and right turn, which is for the green wire, is going to be RT. Now once we have all of our connections made, we're going to come back with some RTV silicone. We do actually sell this. It's pretty generic stuff though, so you can actually get it in town as well at most local auto parts stores. It's called RTV Gasket Maker, and there's a couple different companies that offer that, so it's fairly common. Well, basically we're just sealing up all these contacts in here. So trailer connectors on the front of the vehicle, it's going to get subjected to the elements. There could possibly get water in there, and we don't want water to get in there because what that's going to do is that's going to corrode and give us lighting issues. So by sealing this up, we're going to keep that water out of there as best as we can. That way we don't have any headaches to deal with down the road. But once we get all that silicone on there, we're going to take our boot. You're just going to slide that over the connector just like that. So next we're going to reinstall our skid shield here. You're going to take your wiring harness and you're just going to slip it up and over this metal crossbeam. This was the one I was talking about earlier. So you just want to feed your wires over that, and then we can just simply reinstall our panel. So now we're going to take our wiring harness here and we're going to route it back to the rear of the vehicle there because we're going to be splicing into our taillight circuits. Now you want to make sure you avoid any moving components such as the suspension or any components that get hot such as our exhaust. We'll be using some zip ties that come in your kit to secure it along the way. We're going to go ahead and knock that out now, and then we'll show you the path that we took. So here you can see our wiring harness coming from the back of the trailer connector. Now in your kit you are going to get a couple feet of the wire loom, and I just use that here for the first couple feet of our harness. So that's probably why you can't see those colored wires. But now we're just going to follow this all the way back to the rear of the vehicle. So we're going to come up and over. There's going to be some existing wiring harness here we're going to tie it to. And that's just going to help keep it secure so it doesn't get tangled up in our sway bars or our steering links. And then we're going to come up and over the outside of the engine mount. And then it's going to come on the outside of the frame actually. And then pretty much from here on back, we're just going to tie it to the top of the frame rail. So you're not going to be able to see it, but it is on top of the frame rail. and we just came from the outside there. If you actually peel this back, you can just go up and over the body mount, and we went all the way back. Now I did combine a couple zip ties right here to secure it to the top of the frame, just so it's not flopping around, because we do have our exhaust here. So I did this a couple times, once here and then once more here, and again our wire is just sitting on top of the frame there, and we have these zip ties securing it down. But we're still going to come up and over the frame here. Once we get into this little area here, you should start to see our wire reappear. So this, we have to come up and over the rear subframe assembly, so going up and over the shock tower mounts here, and then that's pretty much just going to come out on the other side. So your wire is going to come out around this area here. We're going to stop routing it for now because we're going to remove the taillights on the vehicle there, and then we'll start fishing our wires up into the taillight pockets. So now we're going to take a Phillips head screw, and we're going to remove our taillight assembly. So we have 4 screws on the corner there, pretty simple. And then once we get each of the screws removed, we should just be able to pull it straight out and away. So we have a connector we have to remove before we can pull the taillight assembly out away from the vehicle. So just depress that tab there and then separate the two. So now the next thing we're going to do is we need to remove some of the wire loom from our wires here that go to our taillight plug. So just going to take off that electrical tape. So we've got all the electrical tape removed there. We've got a good section of our wires here to play with, so that's going to be good. Just make sure we do this on both sides. So now that we have all that jacket stripped back of our wire and we have these exposed here, you're going to go ahead and route up your bonded 4-pole wiring harness that we routed underneath the vehicle earlier. It should be pretty much a straight shot depending on where you stopped at. There's actually a little foam pad down in there that you can just kind of lift up and just push your wire straight through there. You'll see what you're talking about. You'll see what I'm talking about when you get under there. It is pretty easy and self-explanatory. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and make our connections here. So we need to cut 2 wires about midway here. Going to be the white and green one and the white and orange one. So this white and green one here, this is going to be for the stop and turn signal circuit. And then this orange and white one here, this is going to be for our running light circuit. So what we're going to do is we're just going to strip some of the jacket off both ends of these wires, those 2 ends and these 2 ends. And then we're going to crimp on our blue female spade terminals that come pre-attached to your diodes. So there's one, now we have 3 more. So now we're going to separate the wire strands of our bonded 4-pole. I would make a note that as soon as you pull these wires up into the taillight pocket here, go ahead and zip tie them to the harness here. That way they don't fall back down. But again, we'll go ahead and separate out all of our wires here. We're going to be dealing with the yellow and brown wires to start with. So we've got plenty of extra here. I'm just going to go ahead and cut all that excess off. And then as we've been doing so far, I'm going to remove some of the jacket and crimp on a spade terminal to each of these wires. So for the yellow one, we're going to be using a blue spade, but for the brown one, we're actually going to be using a yellow spade here, which is a little bit larger because we actually have to piggyback this wire over to the other side. So we'll show you that in a second, but we'll go ahead and crimp on our blue spade to our yellow wire here. So now we're going to take the brown wire that we cut off from here, and we're going to use that to piggyback to the other side. So just take one of the ends there, remove some of the jacket, then we'll tie these 2 wires together by just twisting the strands. And then we will secure it there with our yellow spade terminal. Just like so. Now we'll go ahead and begin making the connections to our diodes. So we're going to take one of our diodes here. They're all the same, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to plug one of them into the outside. So the one going to the connector always goes to the singular outside. And that's going to be our white/green wire. Therefore, that's going to hook up to the yellow wire here. And then your other white/green wire is going to go to the other side. So now that we have that diode complete, we're going to take our other diode, white/orange wire going to the connector, goes to the outside. And it doesn't matter which one goes where over here. You just want to make sure you use the correct wire color. So white/orange goes to one of these pins. And then finally we have the brown wire. There we go. So next we're going to take our white wire here and we're going to give ourselves a little bit extra. We don't quite need as much as they've given us here, but we don't want to cut it too short like the others because we do have to reach back in there. So I'm just going to cut out here so. And then I'm going to actually be crimping on the ring terminal that comes in your kit. It's the only ring terminal, so pretty easy to distinguish. And it looks just like this. So we'll go ahead and crimp that on. Now grounding this is going to be a little tricky because we're going to be grounding it into the taillight pocket in here, but we obviously don't have a lot of room to get our tool in there. So I've kind of rigged up something I'm hoping will work here, but we're going to be mounting it inside to this panel here, and I have a right angled bit driver that I think is going to help us with that, but time will tell. So we were able to get our ground secure, and I'll be honest with you guys, that was kind of a pain just because we don't really have any room to get a tool in there. So if you wanted, you could actually just drop the wire down below and ground it there, or if you have any sort of right angle impact or right angle drill bit, you should be able to get the self-tapping screw in. But again, up to you, just depends on how much you want to mess with it. So now we're going to take our green and brown wires. I'm going to fish them down through the hole that we pulled our other wires up earlier because these need to go over there to the passenger side. So I'll just reach in there and kind of find that opening with my hand there. It's pretty large, so shouldn't have too much of an issue. But then just feed the rest of your wires down through that opening there. So now once we have all that excess wire pulled down, I'm going to take our diodes here. I'm going to remove the backing from either one here. And then we're just going to simply stick them together. There we go. Now I'm going to reinstall our taillight here over on this side, and then we'll jump back underneath so we can grab those wires and run them to the other side. So now we're underneath the Jeep here. We have our brown and our green wires. We're going to go ahead and route that over to the passenger side there, just securing it to this cross tube underneath. And then once we get it up there, we'll go ahead and show you those connections, but it is pretty much the same as over on this side. Just a few different color wires. So over here on the passenger side, if you remember on the driver's side, we had a foam panel there that we just snuck our wires through. This is a hard plastic panel, and directly above it is a bunch of foam. So I went ahead and just drilled a hole through there, and you can see we just snuck our wires. That's how you're gonna have to get them into that taillight pocket. So we got our two wires here into the taillight pocket. Go ahead and cut that excess off. And then we're gonna take our connector here, and we're gonna be cutting the white and yellow wire about halfway back, and then the violet and white wire. And then like the same thing we did on the other side, we're going to install a spade terminal on each of those 6 wires there. So now we've got our spade terminals on everything. We'll begin installing our diodes. So the yellow and the white wire is going to be for the stop turn signal circuit. Therefore, we're going to hook that up to our green wire, and then our violet and white wire is going to be for the taillight circuit. So that's going to hook up to the brown wire. So there we go. And now the same thing as we did to the other side. We will stick the 2 diodes to the back of one another. Then we'll reinstall our taillight there. We can test everything out. We're using a tester box we have designed for this purpose, but you guys can just use your motorhome. Go ahead and turn on our tail lights, our left turn, our brake lights, and then our right turn. So if you guys didn't have any of those signals, just go back and check all your crimping there. Sometimes you don't get part of the wire there on your spade connector, so that's one thing to check, but for the most part, should be good to go. And that's going to do it today for our look and installation of the Roadmaster Diode Wiring Kit here on a 2016 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited.